Hello again, it's Simon Murray here, owner of SM Designs, with a new product video. This time from the Flake King, a company we're very proud to be distributing for across Europe. And as the name implies, it's metal flake products, 36 ultra brilliant colours in up to 6 different sizes, completely UV stable for pretty much any application, including automotive. But before we look at the flakes, we're going to look at the dry flake application methods, and this is our FK500, which is primarily an airbrush adapter. And then we have the 550, which is designed for the similar sort of volumetric area, same sort of size, but for people who do not necessarily have an airbrush. And this is the original FK1000, our larger gun, and it's for large areas including automotive, cars, bikes, vans. And lastly, we've got the 1050, which is our latest gun, which is primarily for our corroded metal kits. Our 15 and 100 gram bottles just screw directly onto the guns. So first up is the FK500, which, as I was saying, is primarily an adapter for an airbrush. It's made out of billet alloy and anodized, and it comes with a medium-sized nozzle, which is standard for all of our guns. Now, in order to connect it to the airbrush, you are going to need to buy an adapter separate, and that will be depending on whether you're using a Wata or a Pache. But you simply insert it, and there's a little screw in the glass jar, and you just screw that in there, and that stops the adapter from coming out. The airbrush just connects straight in. Technically, the airbrush doesn't even have to work. I mean, it could have a bent needle, broken nozzle. We're literally just using the air from the airbrush to propel the flake. An additional extra you can buy is the pickup tube, the transfer tube, and that's for our corroded metal kit. Next up is the FK550. The FK550 is a similar gun in a sense that it's going to do the same sort of surface area, skateboard decks, Xbox controllers, fishing lures, etc. However, the difference is that you do not need an airbrush. It is a self-contained gun. It also comes with a 1/8 BSP for an airline, because it will literally run off an airbrush compressor. So if you do not have a lot of air, you do not even have an airbrush, the FK550 is the perfect gun. And again, it also can be purchased with the adapter to convert it to our corroded metals. Moving on to the bigger gun now, and that's the FK1000, the Flake King 1000, which is our original gun. Again, made to the same standard, the same exacting standard, the difference being it's just for larger areas. It's that simple. It has a shut-off valve there if you just want to use it as a blowgun. Again, the head's made out of billet alloy. It has some really nice features, and one feature in particular that I like is that you can have what I call floating head assembly. You can just slacken the screw off a little bit so the pot always remains at the bottom. Although, to be honest, I kind of just favour locking that in and just using it like a regular gun. Again, it comes with the medium-sized nozzle, and it also comes with a regulator. And the regulator just screws straight on to 1/4 BSP. I do recommend a little PTF tape in there, and also using 2 spanners whenever you're tightening that in. But very quickly, just screw that in, and that's the gun ready for use. And lastly, we're going to look at the Flake King 1050, which is our latest addition. It's primarily an identical gun to the FK1000, just a few exceptions. It doesn't have the air valve, and it does, however, have the pickup tube for corroded metals straight out of the jar. So it's effectively ready for our corroded metals. As well as the Flake King guns and the metal flakes themselves, the line also has some other additions, including paint in the form of base coat and surface binders and reducers, but we'll also be expanding the line in the near future to encompass other paints. And we've got an extensive range of fine line tapes from 1mm, 2mm, 3mm, 6mm, 12mm, and also masking tapes. And of course our corroded metal kits also. So I'm just going to set the air pressure up now in the gun. The first thing I want to do is just close off the valve. And I'm going to adjust the air pressure now, and I'm going to bring it up to about 20 psi. At these sort of pressures, it will literally empty that pot in a few brief seconds. So I want to back it off now down to approximately a working pressure of in and around 5 psi. The ideal base color for any metal flake would be black. I mean, you can color code, you can have a gold base for a gold flake or a blue base for a blue flake, but in general you really want a black flake, and that's just to get the maximum brightness out of the flakes. So we would recommend the FK100 black prime base. It'll go through an airbrush, minigun, or a full-size spray gun. If you're putting it through an airbrush, you are going to put quite a little bit of the FK55 thinners in there, but generally you're looking in around 10% for spraying. Now I'm just using a 1.2 setup here, and I'm being a little bit floaty. You can see I'm lashing it on here, and that's really just for the purpose of this video, to speed things up a little bit. I would recommend 2 coats, maybe 3, but you can see here I've got full coverage with just 1 coat. Okay, so I'm ready to connect the flake now, and it couldn't really be more simple. I just take the tub and just screw it directly onto the gun. Nice coarse thread for quick action, color switching very, very quickly. Now, in order for the flake to stick to the surface, we have to use a surface binder. This is the FK50 surface binder. Very simple system. We spray the binder on, and then we spray the dry flake directly onto the surface. So, first coat I'm putting down is a wet coat. Now you can see it's going a little bit milky. I am putting on a fairly wet coat here. I don't want to float coat it, I don't want it to run or anything, but if I do put it on too dry, I'm simply not going to get the flake to stick. The flake will just bounce off. So I'm looking for a medium to wet coat, and 1 coat should be sufficient. Now, there'll be no editing here. I'm going to go from a black panel to completely metal flaked in under 30 seconds. So I'm just taking my gun now, and I've dropped my pressure down to about 2 psi. And I'm not being funny here, I'm actually trying to slow the process down so you can see it. If I were to spray this at about 5 psi, this panel will already have been flaked. So even allowing for me trying to slow this down at 2 psi, you can see I've gone from a black base to a completely metal flake panel in under 30 seconds. The actual drop-off rate, you see when I tap it here, there's just pretty much no flake whatsoever. If I were flaking this with regular conventional method, wet flake and a clear coat, this could take an entire afternoon. The amount of flake I'm using is laughable. I mean, you can see here I've literally just used a couple of drops of flake, and the cool thing about it is what doesn't stick to the actual surface can just be scooped up and used again, so it's a very, very efficient system. Cleaning the gun out couldn't be easier either. I just use a blowgun and literally just blast it in round. No more cleaning with thinners or back flushing your gun or anything like that. Literally just grab an airline, just blow the thing out for about 15 seconds and you're ready. Another great use for the FK50 is to actually cut down your clear coat. What I'm going to do is just mask this panel, cut it in half and mask it, and I'm going to put, in this case, just 1 coat of the FK50, but 1 or 2 coats over the top of the bare metal flake will cut down drastically on the amount of 2-pack clear you're going to actually use. When you first expose it, you can see it looks a little bit frosty, but don't be intimidated by that, it's fine. Once you come in with even your first coat of 2K clear, it will just self-neutralize. It'll go crystal clear, but I promise you it will drastically cut down on the amount of 2-pack clear you're going to actually use. If you do want to apply your flake wet, and it's really not something I'd recommend, it's nowhere near as efficient as the system I've just shown you, but I would recommend just putting it into the FK50. You're talking approximately 80 to 100 grams per litre mixed, but for more information check out our website, or indeed it's even on our colour charts. Back to a dry application method, and this time I'm using the Flake King 500. Ideal for everything skateboard decks, small toolboxes, even moderate size crash helmets and tanks can be done with this. A bit of overkill here obviously with the big spray gun for the FK50, but just for the purpose of this video. And once again, as I say, real-time video here, no editing whatsoever, just using the 500, and pretty much as quick as I can pull the trigger, I've got coverage. Probably sitting here at about a solid 95% coverage. Just switching now to the 550, and obviously it's using the same size jar. It's important to understand that the 500 and the 550, they're really designed for the same application in terms of volumetric area. Really, the only limiting factor you'll have is the 15-gram jar. So I'm just putting on the FK50 here. Same old, same old. You can see I'm being a bit ratty here. I'm not even putting it on a nice even coat. As long as I've got enough product on there for the flake to actually stick to, that's all I need. So in with a 550 now, and again, the speed's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, my record at the moment is a complete crash helmet flaked in under 10 seconds. And just moving this into the shop light, you can just see the depth and the clarity of these flakes. So far, everything we've looked at has been edge to edge, a complete component. This, to me, is now where the Flake King Guns really come into their own. I'm actually going to do small sections here. Just going to open a few canisters. These are our fine line tapes, as I said, available individually in 1, 2, 3, 6 mil, or you can buy a canister which has 1 mil, 1 2 mil, and 2 3 mils. Really, really nice product. This keeps everything nice and flat, keeps it dry, stops it from dehydrating. Love it. Now, what I'm going to do is just take the 3 mil green fine line here. The green's like a kind of a super flexi. The orange is a little bit straighter. But then again, when you've got 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil combinations, you're pretty much going to find whatever you need for the individual job you're working on. For no particular reason here, I'm just using the super flexi green 3 mil. Just lined out a set of traditional, as you'd expect, hot rod set of flames. But because we're going to dry flake this now, we can do jobs like this easily, as opposed to having to flake the entire thing and then mask it all up after it's been cleared. I'm just masking up the negative area now, getting ready to paint the actual flames themselves, and I'm using our prime flatline, in this case 48 mil. Comes in different sizes, but what I particularly like about this product is its transparency. It lets you see the underlying fine line tape, especially if you're cutting out on top of it. Right down to 1 mil, you can easily see it. It's also really, really nice product to draw and cut directly onto the surface. I also like the fact that even though it's transparent, I can put a really, really wet coat of paint over the top of this and I don't get any creep or bleed whatsoever. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually only going to flake half of this. I'm going to flake it in 2 sections to let you guys see that you can stop in the middle of a paint job. This is particularly a big advantage if you're working on big areas. So after laying the FK50, I'm coming in now just using the 500 and some red flake. And you can see here that where I've actually put down the FK50, the flake has stuck to it, obviously, as you would expect. But where it hasn't, where I haven't put down the binder, you can see the flake has literally just bounced off. And what that means is I can just start and stop at will. If I'm doing a van or a big area, I can literally just stop in the middle of the hood, stop in the middle of the tailgate, anywhere, and then just continue without any seams whatsoever. Important not to mask it up though. Just using my blowgun here, just losing the edges, and you can see how very, very easy it is to do vehicle graphics using this method of flake. To do this with wet flake, historically, would be a big job. So hopefully this video has given you a little insight into some of the cool products. Please check out our website smdesigns.co.uk for new products coming onto the market pretty soon. I'm Simon Murray and thanks for watching.